plate's not bad.
Las Vegas, Nevada. Sin City. Moneytown, USA.
That's perfect. Good luck.
The spiritual home of gambling with mile after mile after mile of neon lights and slot machines.
This city in the desert hasn't always had the cleanest of reputations, but it's been a while since the mob ruled the roost here.
Today, Vegas is a fantasy playground for tourists, a bubble of warped reality where you can cruise along in a Venetian gondola, or stroll past the Eiffel Tower, or even visit an Egyptian pyramid.
But every August, Vegas serves as the backdrop for a very different kind of culture clash. You've got your usual Vegas crowd, the raucous bachelorette parties, the jocks knocking back endless alcoholic slushies, but then, rubbing shoulders with them in the streets, bars and casinos, you've got another very distinct group of people. Computer hackers.
Good morning! Welcome to Black Hat! Questions, directions! Look for a green shirt! We're here to help!
Every year, the great and the good of the tech security world fly into town for the Black Hat Conference, named after the industry term for criminal hackers, the Black Hats. It's a tongue-in-cheek name, actually. The conference is a meeting place for white hat hackers. That is, security researchers who use their skills to thwart the criminal Black Hats. I was actually at the most recent event last year, giving a talk about the Lazarus Group.
How does North Korea get its money? Well, according to investigators, it hacks, it steals the money. That's what North Korea was doing.
I also got to poke around the event a bit. So I'm at the conference now, and this place is heaving with techies. And yes, a few of them are wearing those black hooded tops you see on movies and TV shows, but these folks aren't criminals, at least not in the vast majority of cases anyway. They work for legitimate companies. And Black Hat is where they come to show off their skills in front of their peers. And it was here that there was a talk that's now become legendary in hacker circles. Even among the tech gurus here at Black Hat, this talk blew people's minds. And it also got a lot of people very, very worried indeed.
I will be discussing attack methods for both standalones and hole-in-the-wall ATMs. I'll go over walk-up style attacks, but then I'll shift focus to a far more important vector, and that's...
It's 2010, and the Black Hat Conference has taken over the iconic Caesars Palace, prime real estate on the Vegas Strip. There's a packed room watching a presentation by a security researcher called Barnaby Jack.
So I will quickly demo the walk-up style attack. Okay, so it boots. Right now it should be...
As you can probably tell from his accent, he's from New Zealand. There's a video from that demonstration in Vegas. Barnaby is wearing a black suit, he's got on a black shirt. There's a little swagger in his walk as he moves around the stage. He's got buzzed hair and an impish grin that hints that he could be up to something naughty.
Copies of firmware over, so you can go back to the ATM.
He's been given the main stage, and hundreds of people have squeezed in to watch, because Barnaby's promised them something spectacular.
Next to him on stage is a pair of freestanding ATMs, cash machines, the kind you find in convenience stores and bars around the world.
The attraction to target ATMs is fairly obvious. I mean, they're full of cash.
They look a bit weird standing there on stage, but the machines actually belong to Barnaby. Turns out, like most things, you can buy a fully functioning cash point on the internet.
I had the ATM delivery guy literally wheel in one of the ATMs, and he came in and he's like, "Why on earth do you need an ATM in your house for?" And I was feeling a little bit cheeky at the time, so I just looked at him like, "Oh, I don't like the transaction fees, mate." And he just kind of shook his head and went on his way.
So he owns these machines. He hasn't stolen them from the hotel lobby. And he hasn't stolen any money either. In fact, he's loaded them with fake bills.
These are $1 million bills. Probably not much use at the craps table.
He starts typing lines of code into a laptop perched on a podium. Everything he types is projected onto a large screen behind him so that this discerning crowd can follow along.
There's a hushed silence in the room as Barnaby types the crucial final commands into his keyboard.
Issue the jackpot command. We have a winner. I want there to be a big pile of rooms.
He wrote a piece of malware that could make the ATM send all of its cash out. And what I loved about it too is it didn't just do that, but yet on the screen it would actually say like, "You've won the jackpot." And the crowd loved it.
This is Tiffany Rad. She witnessed Barnaby's demos, and yes, you heard her right. He'd worked out how to get an ATM to spew out all its money into a giant pile using just computer code.
It's a technique known in hacker circles as jackpotting. Barnaby's version of it was particularly impressive. He didn't even need physical access to the machine. He could do it all remotely over the internet.
Tiffany's a hacker herself, as well as a lawyer and an academic. And like Barnaby, she's particularly interested in what's called hardware hacking. That's breaking into real-world objects that are controlled by computers, like an ATM.
She first got into it because she wanted to see if she could hack her own car.
It was a time when you couldn't turn off the airbags, and I was doing off-roading, and the only way to really get that to turn off was we figured out how to get into the car's computer and tell it to turn off all the time.
Astonishing. I probably don't need to say this, but please do not try that on your own car at home. I asked Tiffany to tell me about Barnaby's jackpotting skills because, unfortunately, Barnaby's no longer around to tell the story himself. He died in 2013.
He was known as being just a really happy, generous guy. He was very energetic, and it was a big loss to the security research community when he passed away.
He was definitely a character. Case in point, he said he got the idea for jackpotting from watching something similar in the movie Terminator 2.
It wasn't just in Las Vegas that Barnaby demoed his jackpotting. He was in demand at hacking and security conferences all over the world. Tiffany was in Abu Dhabi when he showed it off at another Black Hat conference.
It was held at Emirates Palace, which at the time was the most expensive hotel in the world.
Exactly the kind of place you might expect to find
A gold machine, something like an ATM that would dispense gold bars.
A gold dispensing ATM, that's crazy.
Indeed, yeah. And none of us at the time were like, you know what, we can't even buy the lowest denomination of this. This is really interesting. And Barnaby looks around the back and he's like, oh, wow, look at that. He's like, that looks just like an ATM. So he went to talk to the manager of the hotel, and the manager came out and said, yeah, we know who you all are. Why don't you go ahead? Well, just don't take anything, but go ahead, give it a try.
Barnaby connects a laptop to the port at the back of the ATM, and he's getting ready to load his malware onto it when the hotel realises it doesn't actually have the permission of the company that owns the machine.
So the owner of the gold machine found out that Barnaby was actively plugged into it, and they were upset about it.
By the time he died, Barnaby may have been the world's most famous hardware hacker. After his ATM hack, he began tinkering with medical devices like insulin pumps and pacemakers. And he learned how to gain remote control of their tiny inbuilt computers. And he would show just how he could get those devices to malfunction in potentially fatal ways.
But he wasn't aiming to give tutorials to criminals on how to murder people via their pacemakers or how to rob cash points. Barnaby's goal was to highlight the flaws in systems so banks could make them more secure. He'd already alerted the cash point manufacturers to the weaknesses he'd found, giving them time to update their software.
The goal of the talk definitely isn't to give a cookbook recipe on how to hack ATMs. Society relies on various proprietary systems, whether they be ATM machines, medical devices, smart meters, parking meters. It's important to research these systems. As a result of that research, we can use that knowledge to design better and safer products in the future.
You'd rather hear about this from someone who's coming to you, with information and wants to help, than hearing about it because a cyber criminal group has exploited it.
Still, it wasn't long before hacking gangs began jackpotting cash points around the world with their own viruses. Some might have been inspired by Barnaby's work. But let's face it, criminals will always be interested in exploiting cash points. As Barnaby said, it's where the money is.
This jackpotting racket catches the eye of one gang of hackers in particular. You guessed it, North Korea's Lazarus Group.
From the BBC World Service, this is The Lazarus Heist, Season 2.
I'm Jean Lee. I'm a journalist who opened the first and only U.S. news bureau in North Korea.
And I'm Jeff White. I'm an investigative journalist covering tech and organised crime.
This is the story of the Lazarus Group, one of the most mysterious and malicious hacking gangs in the world, allegedly working on behalf of a nation-state, North Korea. North Korea strongly denies the Lazarus Group's very existence, calling these claims a farce aimed at tarnishing the country's image.
But that's not what leading law enforcement agencies say. And in this season, we reveal what North Korea's hackers are accused of doing next. Their schemes get more advanced, more outlandish, and more ambitious than ever, enabling them to steal not millions, but billions of dollars from victims around the world. And despite the best efforts of police and intelligence services to track and tame them, like their biblical namesake, the Lazarus Group rise again.
North Korea is nothing if it is not creative, clever, agile.
Over $2 billion. We're at $2.1 billion in stolen funds. $2.1 billion.
I was put in handcuffs, both my feet bound and my hands, taken to an interrogation centre. We were genuinely very frightened.
Holy moly, that would be terrifying. I mean, that would be so risky that you might start World War III.
From the BBC World Service, this is The Lazarus Heist, Season 2. Episode 1, Jackpotting. Mumbai, India. It's the 14th of August 2018, a humid and sluggish Tuesday. Outside, traffic crawls along in the afternoon haze. Inside one of the city's police stations, Inspector General Brajesh Singh is taking a quick break from fighting crime, because tomorrow is a big day for his team.
15th of August is our Independence Day here. In police, we celebrate it. It's a formal occasion where we hold our parades, and all the VIPs gather, all kinds of units from army to navy to police to paramilitary. Everybody participates. It's a great day for us.
So the day before, you're polishing your shoes and shining your buttons and that kind of thing?
I guess.
So not exactly a good time for Brajesh to get news of a major crime.
पुणे के कॉस्मोस बैंक में साइबर अटैक से 96 करोड़ की लूट हुई है। बैंक के वीजा क्रेडिट कार्ड से 21 देशों में 96 करोड़ का ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ। सभी ट्रांजैक्शन से
We strangely got to know of the Cosmos Bank case from the TV. Actually, one of my juniors came running to me and said that, look, there's something running on TV where we are saying that there has been some kind of cyber attack on a bank in Pune.
The bank in the news is the Cosmos Cooperative Bank. It's one of India's largest banks. It's headquartered in Pune in Maharashtra state, and that is Brajesh's beat.
Much as I love podcasting, I really wish we could show you a video interview with Brajesh. He's got a piercing gaze and impressively thick moustache. He was once described by an online magazine as Mumbai's answer to a Bruce Willis action hero. Oh, and he's also written a political thriller called Quantum Siege. At the time of this attack, he was heading up Maharashtra's cybercrime unit, and that's where he is when he starts hearing these strange news reports.
पुण्यातील कॉस्मॉस बँकेत सायबर अटॅक झालाय 2 दिवस एटीएम बंद ठेवण्यात आले हा अटॅक
And we were very surprised because by that time nobody had actually informed us. So it is ironical that we came to know of this not from our own sources, from our intelligence, but from television.
So Brajesh stops polishing his parade shoes and makes a few calls to the bank. What he hears worries him so much, he decides to ditch the festivities and get on the road.
And then I decided to leave for Pune. Pune is like 150 kilometers from Mumbai. Since it seemed to be such a big attack, I decided to go there to supervise the investigation personally.
Pune, population 7.5 million. It's a huge industrial centre, famous for its car industry. It's known as India's Motor City. Brajesh makes his way to Cosmos HQ, a modern 12-storey steel and glass complex, to meet the bank's distraught staff.
They were all like shuttered. They didn't exactly know how to respond to this.
A strange tale unfolds. The previous Saturday, 11th of August, when not too many people were in the office, urgent messages started to arrive.
There were messages from Visa US regarding abnormal transactions, the sharp increase in transaction during 1 hour, and they were alerting us to go through about the genuineness of these transactions.
This is Milind Karle, chairman of the bank.
If you've listened to season 1, what he's saying is probably sounding eerily familiar. A bank in South Asia suddenly getting urgent messages about suspicious transactions. It's what alerted the Central Bank of Bangladesh to the attempted billion-dollar hack that we covered in season 1. But this time, it's a different story, and it's going to lead us down a very different and even more surprising labyrinth of rabbit holes.
This time, the calls are coming from Visa, one of the world's largest card payments companies. And they're calling from the US to say, hey, you might want to take a look at some suspicious ATM withdrawals connected to Cosmos bank cards. Visa says they can see thousands of demands flooding in for large amounts of cash.
So Milind's team look into it, but when they do, things don't quite add up.
When they said the number of transactions and the value of the transaction is abnormal, we tried to check it at our end, but surprisingly, there were no abnormal transactions at our end. This continued for about half an hour. They were cautioning us and we were reverting back that there are no such transactions.
The bank staff should be able to see these ATM withdrawal requests coming through on their computers, but they can't. Everything looks normal.
30 minutes later, they authorized Visa to stop all transactions from Cosmos bank cards just to be safe.
But that half hour would turn out to be extremely costly. Those messages from Visa were just the first warning signs of a giant, well-coordinated attack. The next day, Sunday, Visa shares the full list of suspect transactions with the bank.
Which were 12,000 transactions.
12,000 transactions. That's 12,000 separate jackpotting incidents from different ATMs.
Police Inspector General Brajesh Singh can hardly believe what he's hearing.
In terms of Indian money, 94 crore rupees had gone, some $14 million. In a single case, it was a huge, huge loss to the bank.
He starts to pick over the traces of what is, effectively, a digital crime scene. The hackers had done their best to cover their tracks. They'd tried to wipe the data on the bank's computers. But investigators had managed to find some information among the wreckage, which gave a clue as to how and where the hackers got in the first place.
There was some initial compromise through spear phishing. Very targeted emails were sent.
The phishing emails arrived in employees' inboxes and said something like, "You have won a prize, click to claim it." It's an age-old trick for computer hackers, this. But those dodgy emails are still their weapon of choice because, depressingly, they still work.
As they did at Cosmos. Once an employee opened an attached file, their prize turned out to be a virus that took hold of their machine and quickly spread through the bank's networks.
Somehow, this intrusion had allowed the hackers to co-opt the bank's systems from the inside.
So it was basically a very well thought of scheme. It seems that the attacker had very good knowledge of banking systems.
The attacker had very good knowledge of banking systems. Sounds like someone we know, right?
Indeed it does, yes. But at this point, Brajesh is still very far from working out who's behind the attack, and he can't immediately see how it was done. But he does get hold of some very useful info from inside the bank.
We then got the data of withdrawals. Then we found clusters that, these are happening in particular areas.
He can see the precise locations of the cash points where dodgy withdrawals have been made.
Quite a few of them were close by. In Maharashtra state, dozens of ATMs had been targeted. Brajesh starts to realize the scale of the crime he's dealing with. This heist required a lot of people to make all these withdrawals, a big gang, and they're very well organized.
We were very amazed. We were not aware of a money mule network like this.
By locating the cash points, Brajesh can now get hold of CCTV footage from them, showing the exact moment the dodgy cash withdrawals are made. He watches back the tapes. There are dozens of different men, money mules, seemingly in their 30s and 40s, casually dressed in t-shirts and jeans. They walk up to the cash points, stick in the cards, and stuff the cash into bags.
And Brajesh is watching footage of it happening. Sounds like an amazing lead, right? Video footage of the thieves in action. But of course, they know they're on camera, so...
They try and hide from the CCTV camera. They try to wear caps. They try to cover their mouths. They try and disguise their appearances.
Brajesh is going to have his work cut out finding these guys, because the story's about to get even wilder. As the police and banks teams investigate, they realise the full scale of what's happened. And it turns out these withdrawals didn't just take place in India. This is an international jackpotting spree.
Somehow, criminals pulled off over 12,000 jackpotting attacks at ATMs in 28 different countries.
And what makes this even more astonishing is the timing. All these withdrawals took place simultaneously in a time window of just 2 hours, 13 minutes. And you've got to realise these 28 countries are spread across multiple time zones.
India,
Canada,
Bulgaria,
the UK,
the United Arab Emirates,
Turkey,
Japan,
Russia,
the United States.
The attack happened in the afternoon in India, but the dead of night in America, breakfast time in the UK, hackers have managed to compromise hundreds of ATMs and coordinate an army of money mules to jackpot those machines at exactly the same time. It's an extraordinary global flash mob of crime.
How do you coordinate such an international attack? How do you make it work on so many continents simultaneously?
And perhaps equally importantly, who's running it? Well, months before the attack, thousands of miles from India, a British tech company got a sniff that something dodgy was about to go down. They had a fair idea who was behind it.
We picked up evidence that the Lazarus Group were inside a bank in India. Initially, it wasn't particularly clear who the end victim was. We had a hunch.
Adrian Nish works for BAE Systems. They're a huge defence contractor. They make fighter jets and tanks. But as cyber warfare has become a growing threat, they've concentrated on the digital side too. Adrian's absolutely fascinated with this stuff. He once sat me down and went through a computer hack with me line by line, explaining each little twist and turn in the code. It was amazing. Adrian and his team spend a lot of their time sleuthing the internet for clues about cybercrimes.
The nature of crime that's been conducted over the internet means that activity is logged in one place or another. We kind of follow those bits of evidence.
Adrian's team are experts in a particular technique. They monitor a thing called command and control servers. Here's how it works. If you, for example, hack into someone's computer directly from your own computer, then the police can trace the hack back to you. Not very smart. So instead, you send your commands via another computer, perhaps another one you've hacked into previously. This becomes your command and control server. It's a digital middleman between you and your victim.
Often, this middleman computer belongs to someone completely innocent who has no idea they've been hacked. So if a researcher like Adrian can identify that machine and get in touch with whoever owns it, he can get access to a potential treasure trove of evidence.
Once you have the logs from those servers, you can see what's going through them, what's going on.
That's interesting. What can you find out about what the hackers are up to from that kind of intel?
Everything. In certain cases, you can see exactly what they have stolen. You can see exactly the commands they've executed to carry out the attacks. It's kind of captured the crime as it was carried out, and it's there as evidence.
In June 2018, Adrian's team identify a command and control server that they're confident is being used by the Lazarus Group. They can now watch activity happening on this machine in real time. They're looking over the hackers' shoulders, watching them operate.
They suspect an attack is imminent on a bank in India. They can't be sure exactly who the victim is, but nevertheless, they try to alert authorities in India.
We didn't hear anything back, and the next we knew, the story was in the news.
Oh, gosh.
We, of course, knew straight away it was the Lazarus Group again, because we had been watching some of their command and control activity. It would have been too much of a coincidence for it to have been another criminal operation. Probably they were in there for many months doing reconnaissance. We don't know exactly what they did, but we do know they managed to get onto some of the ATM systems.
So, can I just point out how amazing it is that these hackers even came up with the idea to get ATM machines to spit out cash all at the same time, all around the world? Because North Koreans don't use ATMs, not even in the capital, Pyongyang. It's easy for us to take ATMs for granted. But this is a technology that would have been totally foreign to these young North Koreans. In fact, when North Koreans defect to South Korea, one of the first things they're taught to do in the resettlement process is how to open a bank account and how to use an ATM. So the hackers may have learned about how we use ATMs in the rest of the world, but their first experience of them may have been when they were sent abroad on a cyber mission.
That's amazing. So how do people get cash in North Korea if there aren't cash points? How do they actually pay for stuff?
Well, first of all, most North Koreans don't have reason to handle a lot of cash. Salaries are extremely low because the state claims to take care of their needs: housing, healthcare, education, food. The people queue up twice a month for rations, whatever it is the state can provide. But in reality, the state doesn't have enough to go around. So North Koreans do what they can to supplement their meager salaries. I've had North Koreans try to sell me biscuits cobbled together from rations, dumplings. In Pyongyang, the goal was always to be sent abroad to make foreign currency, like our North Korean IT workers, because the dollars, euros, and Chinese yuan that they bring back provide access to a whole other economy and life in Pyongyang. Restaurants, cafes, and supermarkets, and cakes, cappuccinos, and Coca-Colas.
So what about you? How did you pay for things when you were in North Korea?
Well, people like me who are there for work have to make sure we bring in enough cash. I always had US dollars, euros, and Chinese yuan in my wallet just to cover our expenses. And I have to say, I've bailed out a few foreigners who were there for business and discovered the hard way that they couldn't pay their hotel bill with a credit card or get cash at an ATM.
Interesting stuff. But of course, unlike most North Koreans, it looks like the country's Lazarus group of hackers had no problems understanding cash point technology.
That's right. Think back to Barnaby Jack's demo for a moment. He created malware that would make one ATM spit out all its cash. But to do that 12,000 times in 28 countries, he'd have had to painstakingly target each ATM. So to make jackpotting work on a global scale, the Lazarus Group used a whole new strategy.
Yeah, the next bit is really clever, and to understand it, you're going to want to know a bit about how cash points work. Now, as far as you're concerned, I'm sure you don't even care. You put in your card, type in your PIN, get your cash, and off you go. But there's a bit more to it than that, as Adrian Nish at BAE well knows.
For you to get the money out of the cash machine needs to know that you've got that money in your account wherever that card is. It doesn't matter where in the world you put your card in, it will get routed back to your issuing bank. Your issuing bank will have to provide a message that you can withdraw it.
The bit of software that handles all these messages is called the ATM switch. It's a fancy name for the bit of software in the bank that checks you've entered the right PIN, checks you've got enough in your account, and tells the ATM to give you the money. Every bank has its own ATM switch, and once the hackers were inside the one at Cosmos Bank, they had the power to allow or deny ATM withdrawals from anyone using a Cosmos Bank card anywhere in the world. Pretty good, huh?
Yes, but surely to make withdrawals, the hackers would need to have a load of Cosmos Bank cards, enough for 12,000 transactions around the world. How did they get all those cards?
Good point. Yes, to make a withdrawal from Cosmos, you need a card connected to a genuine Cosmos Bank account. Luckily for the hackers, they've got a trick up their sleeve. Firstly, the hackers got hold of legitimate Cosmos customers' bank details. So that's the account number, sort code, and name, and so on. Now, we're not exactly sure how they did this, but they're inside the bank's network, so they could have got hold of real account details, or they could have had accomplices set up new accounts. Ultimately, however they did it, they end up with the details of 450 legitimate Cosmos accounts. Then, they create bank cards for those accounts. Sounds high-tech, but it's amazingly simple, and of course, highly legal. Don't try this at home. In your wallet, you probably have a loyalty card for a shop or a supermarket. On the back is a black stripe. That's the magnetic stripe that holds your account details. Well, for a few $100s, you can buy a machine on the internet that will wipe off the loyalty card data. It can then overwrite it with whatever data you want. It's like when you check into a hotel and they swipe your room key to encode it. It's the same sort of equipment. But instead of getting you into a hotel room, this cloned cash card will now get you into someone's bank account. So, accomplices of the hackers take hundreds of these plastic loyalty-type cards and overwrite them with the details of the 450 Cosmos bank accounts that they've obtained.
Okay, but surely they still need to know the card's PIN.
It's another good point. Yeah, getting the PIN is one of the biggest obstacles for card fraudsters. But remember, in the Cosmos attack, the hackers have taken over the ATM switch inside the bank. They not only see all the withdrawal requests, they control the PIN checks. So when a withdrawal comes in from one of their accomplices, they can just say yes.
So when the message comes in, it gets to that switch. The attacker's malware basically intercepts that message, checks it against its local list of card numbers, and if that is a match, if it's the card number from one of their cloned cards, responds back saying, authorize the transaction. And the criminals on the street corner can just keep putting the card in, take as much out of the ATM as the ATM will give it, and it will always just respond back, authorize, 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 authorize. So this group, if there's one thing I have to kind of say about them, is they are extremely innovative. Every case is somewhat different.
You can hear it there, can't you, in Adrian's comments, the grudging respect of an experienced security researcher for a top hacking squad like the Lazarus Group. The hack itself is impressive, but Adrian's also struck by the group's versatility.
What they did with the malware in terms of the intercepting of the messages is also quite sophisticated, not something I don't think anybody has seen before. It shows the level of skills that the group have. I think that was probably on a similar level to Bangladesh Bank.
Really?
They would have had to learn again how to subvert different type of financial system, but they did it.
Yeah. They seem to really know banks. They came to the point where they really understand banks.
Yeah. You know, it's months of research. It's the motivation. Most criminal groups will probably be happy enough to get away with a couple of million and stop at that. But the Lazarus, obviously, they think in orders of magnitude bigger.
Of course, once a heist like this goes down, banks work hard to fix the vulnerability in their software that the hackers were able to exploit. So, if any world-class hackers are listening to this podcast looking for ideas, you don't need me to tell you that ATM switch software will likely be a lot more robust now than it was in 2018 when that Cosmos job went down.
It may be novel and impressive, but this new tactic, motivated by the lure of instant ATM jackpots, is about to create some pretty big headaches for the Lazarus Group.
It's certainly a very loud way of doing things. You know, this will be a great way to attract law enforcement in 28 countries. And then there is a logistics challenge, of course, with this, because it was 28 countries with criminals in each of these countries who had to be given all of these physical cards. They also had to have a route of ATMs they could go around, because it wasn't that you go to one ATM and you cash out 10,000. That's not going to work. The ATM will only give you a few $100s at any given time. So you have to go to different ATMs, but all within this 2-hour window that the attackers had for the heist.
Fascinating.
So it's quite a considerable logistics operation just planning that.
You're not kidding, yeah.
Inspector General Brajesh Singh is on the case, and he's going to find some extraordinary answers to these questions.
These people were simultaneously coordinating in more than 20 countries in different time zones. It was just like abracadabra. Put these cards, put any PIN number, and you get money.
So, how did they do it? All those money mules making cash withdrawals around the world, where did they all come from? It looks like the Lazarus Group wasn't working alone this time.
The Cosmos Bank hack is going to lead us into some of the deepest, darkest corners of the internet. A cyber underworld inhabited by some pretty unsavory characters.
It is odd at first to see heroin, cocaine, ecstasy all being sold very, very openly. It was a pretty bizarre world to be enmeshed in.
That's next time on The Lazarus Heist.
The Lazarus Heist is an original podcast from the BBC World Service. I'm Jean Lee.
And I'm Jeff White. Our producer is Viv Jones.
Our original music was composed by Magnus Fines and Yi Il Wu from the South Korean band Jambanari.
We hope you've liked this first episode of Season 2. We've really enjoyed getting all your messages and comments telling us how much you've been looking forward to this new season. Please, as ever, we'd love to hear your feedback.
Leave us a rating and a review if your podcast platform allows for it. Your comments will help other listeners find the show. And remember to follow or subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. We've got some amazing stories to tell this season.
And please do help us spread the word. Tell everyone you know that we're back. And if any of them didn't know about us in the first place, there's Season 1 for them too.
Thank you for listening.